How you doing, bud?
Pretty good. How are you?
Doing, bud? We're good.
It's never over.
You look beautiful.
Do I?
God damn it! You spilled. All right, I'm gonna. Oh, I just spilled. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for breaking down the game. We're on episode 10. So, Isles, it looks like we reached a milestone, 10 episodes, and we're still at it.
Yep. And we're going to keep going, right?
Yeah, this season we're going to keep going, and we're going to see where it goes from there.
Perfect.
So you are coming to us from an exotic location. Care to share? Care to share with us, bud?
I am in Lake Tahoe. Yeah, it's beautiful here.
California, beautiful.
Yeah, right on the border of Nevada, and I think it almost splits Lake Tahoe in half. Between,
it does?
Yeah, California and Nevada. Yeah, super beautiful here. Snowed a couple days. Went on hikes with my wife today. It was beautiful. Beautiful place. Check it out if you get a chance.
Yeah, doing adult things.
Yep.
But I appreciate you getting away for a short period of time so we can channel our inner 13-year-olds and talk some Packer football.
I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Yeah, it's been a busy week on this end as well, so I apologize for getting this out late. It's going to be somewhat unvarnished, but maybe that makes a better show.
Yep.
Before we get started, please like, comment, and subscribe. Engage with us. We really enjoy this, even though the Packers are a bit down this year, and that might be stating it mildly. So the first topic I want to get to, Isles, is we suck because we suck.
Yeah.
That's a direct quote from Rasul Douglas.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we just suck. What are your first thoughts on that quote Rasul gave us, Isles?
I think based on at least, especially this week with a later show for you and me, I've read so much and saw different people's opinions and the stuff about Rodgers not looking good. But I think you're right. I think we just suck because we suck. There's like so many facets that just we're not doing well. We have injury problems, missing, assignments, missing execution, which I know is one of our favorite. Oh, we got a guest.
Hey, honey. We're in the middle of recording, so you might want to buzz out of here. Shut the door.
So yeah, no worries. But you know what I mean though? Where don't you feel like what is going right? Like maybe switch the question around and say, really, what is going right?
Yeah, but honestly, if you did that, Isles, we might not have a show.
Yeah, I know. It's just it is exactly. It's crazy where we're at comparatively to last year. And I feel like aside obviously from losing Adams, losing some coaching, I feel like we had got an upgrade on defense at the beginning of the season, and we still have both of our backs, and we have a serviceable set of receivers. We have a decent offensive line. We still have Rodgers, a 2-time MVP, and here we are. I feel like we can't beat anybody. We might be the worst team in the league.
Yeah, and I totally agree. There's a multitude of things that are all happening at the same time, and you can't really put your finger on any one thing and say that is the exact cause of it. So I did jot down a few things that came to my mind, and we'll start with, we really have a talent drain, and that includes the coaching staff and some of the players, right? Some of that is due to some poor drafting. I think we have a lot of bad contracts on the book right now. For example, we're paying Za'Darius almost $12 million this year to play for the Vikings. So that's just a lingering effect of a bad contract from the previous years. You can lump Bakhtiari in there and even Aaron Rodgers. So we got bad contracts. Our credit card is maxed out right now, so we don't have a lot of room to maneuver. for this year and the upcoming years. So that's a cause of concern going forward. So we also have a number of one-year wonders, I'm going to call them, Isles.
Yeah.
Dudes who balled out last year were great and are not as good this year.
Yep.
And some of them we paid some big money to, which just adds to the bad contracts we have going on. I don't want to get too in depth with each of these guys, but some of the guys I jotted down was, Eric Stokes definitely took a step back. It looks like he's out for the year. That's a loss because we want him to continue to improve. Devondre Campbell has taken a big step backwards, and we paid him a big amount of money to stay. Rasul Douglas, I love the guy. He's still a very good player, but he's not as prolific as he was last year. And of course, our constant punching bag, Dean Lowry, is not playing nearly as good as last year. Come to think of it, we can even throw in A.J. Dillon into the mix there too.
Mm-hmm.
I think he is a wonderful human. I think he's a great guy. He's beloved in the area. He's really adopted Wisconsin as his home, and that's a wonderful thing to see. But I'm not sure he is quite the back that we thought he'd be.
Do you think that part of his problem is that he's more of a north-south guy and the line hasn't been as good? Do you think that could be attributing to his success? Because he seems like, where Jones is obviously a more shifty runner and can find holes and make it look better than it actually is.
Yeah. Well, I think Dillon is very much a pounding running back. It's pretty obvious, and he embraces that role. And I think that is what the role he was drafted for was, right?
Yeah.
He is very much north and south, but he doesn't have what I would call explosive quickness. I mean, he gets stronger as he gets into his runs and he pushes piles. I mean, during the Lions game, we were first and goal on the 1 yard line. 4 plays, 2 of them were handoffs to Dillon, and he was stuffed both times. If he is indeed a power runner, he should be running through those motherfuckers, right?
I would agree. Yeah.
But, I mean, we're nitpicking here, and of course we don't know exactly what's going on there, but something isn't right with these players. And just to summarize this all up, we just suck because we suck at all levels.
Just to keep going on this theme a little bit, looking back, do you think that your perception of how Goot has drafted over the past 3 or 4 years has changed? Like last year, were you thinking that, oh, this guy's pretty smart, and now this year you're looking back and you're like, wow, it's not good? You know what I mean? Is that fair? Or what do you think about that?
That's an excellent segue, Isles. I mean, I wanted to talk about draft strategy with you.
Let's do that.
That's a number of things that I've mentioned in the past, and I even did a video recently regarding the poor drafting, especially regarding the wide receiver position. So when I talk about draft failures, I mean, Gutekunst took over in drafting 2017. Now, in retrospect, we've learned that Ted Thompson, at the tail end of his tenure as the general manager, that he was ailing physically and potentially mentally, considering the ailment he had affected his nervous system, for a lack of better description. So I am wondering, and this is maybe a little conspiracy theory, at the tail end of Ted Thompson's run, 2015, 2016, was Gutekunst really in charge of the draft there? Or did he have a bigger role in the draft there? So those poor drafts at the tail end of Thompson's career makes you wonder if he wasn't completely in charge all with it there.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Only problem is it's such a speculative thing, right? but and it's like making one guy look out to be like a potential genius compared to Goot, right? And so from my perspective, it's very possible, though. It's a very interesting take. It is very possible that could have been the case. Um,
Sure.
but I'm thinking from the long haul of what we've seen since 2017 and where those players are now, and obviously the love thing and everything else. It's like, and so to me, it just seems crazy that we've been able to survive all these years without making some big move to get some big talented person to
Yeah.
help out Rodgers. So
Yeah, in the draft video I made probably a little more than a week ago, I was talking about how there were 3 years that they went through. 3 years, did not draft one wide receiver, and the only receiver they did draft was Amari Rodgers in the third round. And
yeah,
do you count him?
no, yeah, no,
Not
no,
yet.
no, no,
If we talk about if I just go back and talk about the drafts that Goot was indeed in charge of, we can see that at first glance, when those drafts happened, we thought he did excellent, right?
exactly.
2017 was an awesome draft. 18, awesome. 19, awesome. All these drafts were awesome, but that was at first glance. Now we
Yeah,
look back 4 years later, we see that Jare is the only member of the Packers team currently from that 2017 draft. And we look at the players in subsequent years and we see, geez, these guys haven't panned out nearly like we thought they would. So why
yeah,
is that? So I want to, what I think the Packers do is they draft for athletes, right?
yep,
They put athletic talent above all else when evaluating players. And, you can quantify this by looking at the RAS scores, or the relative athletic scores of the players that were drafted the past few years. Now, I know the Packers don't use RAS as a metric, or they say they don't, but the point is the last 4 drafts, the Green Bay Packers cumulative RAS scores on the players they drafted was some of the highest in the NFL. So what does that tell you? Yes, they covet athletes.
yeah,
Great, right? We all want great athletes. But do you pick great athletes over good football players?
yeah. That's a great point.
One thing Jimmy Johnson said on some little documentary I was watching is he said he would never draft or take a dumb football player, right?
Yeah,
So you can have all the athleticism in the world, but if you are not smart football wise, I don't see what good it is. So I think the Packers took a lot of swings at the fence trying to get great athletes and kind of ignoring how smart some of these football players are. That's one of the things that I noticed. I mean, other examples you can look at is Orrin Brooks, Darnell Savage, Jamon Moore, all guys who had super athletic talent, but less than stellar results on an NFL field, right?
yeah. And
Um,
I remember Gary too was kind of a pick for his athleticism too, right? There was a lot of
correct.
speculate. I mean, granted, last year again, and even parts of this year, I think he's played great. But I definitely went and drafted a little bit on speculation because of what a freak athlete the guy actually is.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah,
they take swings for the fences, and that's great. But I think you need to balance that with guys who are proven football talents, or
what
football players. And as an example of Gary, great pick. What did it take? How many years did it take for him to develop? Right? It took him about 2 full years to develop into that awesome player that he is today. Right?
Yep, yep,
And in today's NFL, you don't have time to develop. You have
yeah.
to kind of hit the ground running right when you get into camp.
Again, one question for you, and is that how do you view, like, well, actually 2 questions. One is that what is your take about how we've kind of spread out our draft? Meaning that when we go into the draft, we have our picks and maybe we've made a slight move up to do something in certain cases, but we really are looking at that draft to try to fill some holes along the way versus potentially maybe bundling some of those up to go big and get something that is like a game changer for them? That's kind of one question. And then how do you feel about like how we draft and develop? And then it feels like once they get to the point where they're developed, it feels like we can't afford the contract because we're in money trouble, and they go off to somebody else and kick some ass, you know?
Yeah, those are all really good points, Isles. I think once you have an established team that is very close to getting to a Super Bowl, what you want to do in the draft is do some of that bundling and bundle these picks and take some of the big chances at the high end of the draft, right? Because what you're looking for is impact football players who can come in and help you right now. Because what you're doing is you're kind of mortgaging the future for the now, right?
Yep.
Now, if you're a team that is struggling to get to the playoffs, has a lot of trouble, has a lack of talent, I think what you want to do is accumulate more draft picks and have more bites at the apple, so to say, because then you can accumulate players, and if some don't work out, which they're not, they move on, but you might hit on a lot of these other players. So I think the more chances you get at a player, the more likely it is you're able to gather better players. So that's what I think of that.
No, I think that's an awesome take. I mean, I think that's exactly right. And it's like, you think about that. I think that's where the frustration of some of the majority of the fan base has been in these drafts, is trying to look for that big move. And I feel like, especially that one year, I can't remember if it was 2 years ago, but when there was, I think the year they took Love, right? When it was just packed with wide receivers, and a lot of opportunity there, and nothing was made. So, what about do you get frustrated with the draft develop and then ship off to some other team to kick ass kind of?
Yeah. And this goes back to what I was talking about just earlier, is that if you're drafting great athletes who are raw, need time to develop, well, it's going to take a few years before they get on the field or really become great football players. And by that time, you're either going to have to pay them big bucks, or like you said, they're going to leave in free agencies. You can't keep everyone. So that's why in today's NFL, you really got to get football players who are ready to go right from the start. And Aaron Rodgers and David Bakhtiari even voiced those same opinions during training camp this year. He said, we need guys to come in and be ready to go now. We don't have time to wait for them. That is the reality of the NFL today. So the whole draft and develop method that the Packers have been doing for the last 4 years really is better suited when you are at the bottom of the barrel. If you're a team knocking on the door of the Super Bowl, you got to do what you can to get those rare athletes with supreme football knowledge at the top half of the draft. And now I'm getting all pissed off just thinking about this. This should have been done these last 2 years, especially with the type of wide receivers that were in the draft.
I know.
Unbelievable that they let this go. I put this right at Gutekunst and his staff.
I know. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I just, it's in history, right? In history, we're going to look back at the last 5 to 8 years and just see the opportunity that was just lost. Yeah. Right.
And well, if you're going to cut anyone some slack, we can look at Aaron Rodgers as one of the reasons we're in this predicament, because I think when Gutekunst drafted Love, the perception was that Rodgers was on the downside of his career, and we have some type of a Favre situation, right? But what they didn't plan is that he'd come back and win an MVP award right away.
Yeah. That was probably motivation for him too, obviously, right?
Yes.
It's kind of like almost like the same motivation that Favre had when he was going to retire. Then his next motivation was, well, I'm going to show them, and I'm going to do whatever I can. You knew he was going to eventually end up in Minnesota, right? Yes. That's where he wanted to go, and he pretty much fulfilled his destiny, right?
Yeah, by
So,
throwing a pick in the NFC Championship
oh,
game.
that was beautiful, though. That was beautiful. Yeah.
But yeah, I think the whole Rodgers thing kind of really screwed the plans that Gutekunst and the staff had for the future of the Packers.
That's a great point, though. That is
and yeah, and then winning a second MVP award on top of it, and coming so close to Super Bowls. People say, "Oh, we wanted to go all in, sign a bunch of free agents and make these massive trades and stuff like that." The Packers went all in. Rodgers had 2 incredible years back to back. He forced the Packers' hand to pay him big bucks, and he's worth every fucking penny of it.
Yeah. Yep. Do you think, I'm sorry to segue one more, but one last question on this. Do you see next year Jordan Love as the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, the starting quarterback, and Rodgers gone?
No. As long as Rodgers wants to play, he's the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers.
Okay. Do you think he's going to want to play?
I think next year he will play, yes.
Okay.
I think next year for sure he'll play. I think he always wanted to get to the age of 40, number one.
Yeah.
And he has a huge, massive contract. And don't, Packer fans, say, we want him to retire to get that cap space. If he retires, we're in a worse position cap-wise than we would be if he was there at least producing for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
much guaranteed.
Yeah.
All right, let's move her on. Let's talk. Let's move her on. You all right?
Sorry, Isles. It kind of went off script there, and I got all hot and bothered. I hope I didn't wake the kids or upset anyone there out in beautiful Lake Tahoe. So let's talk about something a little more lighthearted, and that is the return of the Big Mac. Mike McCarthy is coming back into town this Sunday. First time coaching against the Packers in Lambeau Field since he left. What are your thoughts, Isles, when you think of Mike McCarthy as the Packers coach?
I don't know, maybe I'm a softie, but I kind of miss the guy. I thought he was awesome. It was a really, really fun time. He kind of, in a way, to be honest with me, and I'm not an amazing football mind, but in a way, for a good period of time, he coached kind of how I would think. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like he was, he liked to air it out. I'm a big air it out kind of guy. I think on an earlier episode, one of my favorite games of all time had to be, and they didn't even win, but it was maybe like Rodgers' second year, and they were playing the Cardinals, and they were getting smoked, and it was like suddenly Green Bay like caught fire, and they were just bombing it all over the place. And we got the ball back at the beginning of the second half, and he onside kicked, and we got the ball, and somehow we got it to overtime. And I think the game ended because Rodgers got sacked and fumbled or something like that on like his own 10. Just, I don't know. There's that. I know that he absolutely loved Green Bay, which is kind of a neat story from where he came, and his family's there. And I kind of feel like he got Rogered, you know what I mean? Like on his exit, right? Like I felt like it was kind of a dark way to go after so much positivity that he kind of brought to the community, winning the Super Bowl. I just wish he could have left in a more classy way and got his due. So I hope that the faithful this week really rises up and gives him a really warm welcome, because I think we shared some good times with him. So what do you think?
I say, fuck that. He's the enemy this week. Boo him.
That's true. Once the whistle blows, though.
Good point. No, I kind of echo the sentiments you have. I think he was the perfect type of guy for the perfect place in Green Bay. I mean, he very much a blue collar kind of matter of fact type guy, and that fit well with the Green Bay culture. Obviously, he loved it, and he fit in well there. Looking back, I think we're all a bit nostalgic for him simply because he's coming in and we're doing so shitty this year.
Yep.
I think a lot of us are getting tired of LaFleur's conferences where he just kind of says the same thing and it's all, feathery, and he doesn't really reveal or say anything interesting. Whereas McCarthy was very matter of fact, and he would answer the questions, kind of straight on and head up. He didn't play these political games. If he didn't want to reveal what he was thinking, he would just flat out say that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I really liked his attitude. Obviously, he had a really good finger on the pulse of the team for years, especially leading up to that Super Bowl run and that amazing Super Bowl they won. Over time, I think, like many things, people get tired of it. His message maybe got stale. His offense got stale. I think they got a bit comfortable in that country club atmosphere, as we talked about earlier with KH about him getting massages in his offense. in his office and missing offensive meetings and things like that because he was getting massages. So sometimes I think that's what naturally happens, and it was time for him to go. But
yeah, I kind of felt like the last year or so that he was here, that he kind of lost control of the team for the first time. And it definitely was that right time to make a move, right? And it showed with LaFleur coming in here, having fresh, vigor to try to change the way the team was run and the offense was different and just kind of mix it up. And he basically inherited the same players and obviously did well. Yeah. So that kind of shows how that, like you're saying, that message, I think, just grew stale. Yeah. But it was a good ride, and it was a fun time, I think. And he did a lot of great things. So kudos to him, but I hope their team gets killed this week.
Yeah, me too. Fuck him and his wandering eye. Right?
Yeah, and his pad level.
His pad level. He'd always talk about stacking successes and pad level, right?
Yeah, hanging out in that barn, developing plays, whatever he does, right?
I always laugh at those ex-coaches who take time off and they like create some type of fucking dungeon, and then they go in there and like they're masterminding a whole new offensive plan, and
I know.
They show up like it's business as usual. They're not on anyone's they're not on anyone's dime. They're just doing it on their own.
He had I'm sure you've read about that, where he had his barn and he had coaches in there and they were evaluating how the game has changed, and he was developing some new, offensive plays and all that stuff. And then you look when he got hired by Dallas and he went there, and the first year they just sucked at offense. It's like, what a total waste of time in that barn. Should have been out on the golf course.
Yeah, I think he's kind of evolved into a classic head coach. He obviously he's not the offensive coordinator at Dallas, and he's got a really good defensive coordinator. So he's basically playing the head coach role and being a manager of the football team, top to bottom, and I think that's where Matt LaFleur is kind of lacking right now. I mean, he is an offensive coach, but I think he leaned heavily on Hackett for offensive game plans and planning and being that connective tissue with the team, you know, and having someone who's new to that role. I think he's suffered as a coach overall because of that. He's had to put more time and energy into the offensive game plan, and he's not simply calling the plays and managing the team as a whole. But that's just speculation on my part.
Yeah. The Hackett thing, I think, has been a huge pain point for us offensively this year. And I guess even myself, I think I've fallen victim to realizing how significant that was. You always hear about how the guys talk about how important the continuity is in the locker room and at practice and all that stuff. And I think you're really seeing like how significant certain coaches can actually be to a professional team.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I always view, at least, I don't know how you are about, like, in the NFL, I mean, coaches are great, don't get me wrong, but I feel like in college, coaches can actually coach. And then when you get to the NFL, there's so many players that are like, give the Heisman to coaches or just want to do their own thing and not listen and stuff like that. But there are certain coaches that can make a significant difference on a team.
Yeah.
So,
mostly with strategy and motivation and motivating grown men the right way. You're not dealing with 17, 18, 19-year-olds anymore.
Yep.
So there's a lot to be said about how teams nowadays are run almost like a corporation, where the coach might be the CEO of the team, and then you have all the other executive level things, and they have all sorts of roles and responsibilities that kind of go down there. You can think of a structure like that, and that all has to be working together, otherwise you got a mess. And I think we're seeing some cracks in the structure of the Packers team right now. Just my opinion.
No, well said. Well said.
All right, thanks, Al. So with that said, let's move on to our favorite, sharpening the knife.
They will call sharpening the knife. Now you get the penis out.
Yeah.
You pull the skin. A lot of people, they never circumstances.
Yeah.
So they have the skin.
Isles, what do we have to do to turn things around a little bit?
The things that at least immediately come to my mind is we just got to look for a small victory within the game itself. Like there needs to be something that begins to get the engine moving in the right direction. I feel like it's going to be difficult. I feel immediately my mind goes to offense and trying to figure something out offensively. But we have a tall task this week because Dallas has a super good defense, and there's some guys there that can really create trouble. But I feel like, you look at, I've watched so many things this week about, guys breaking down the plays, and it feels like when Rodgers goes back to pass, his biggest problem is looking way too deep and not hitting more of a check down or somebody in that intermediate field. And I feel like if we can start to get some of that going, I'd like to see that. And maybe that's a small victory to keep moving the chains, but it's breaking the plane of the end zone, right? We needed one of those games where it feels like last week, again, with the trade, how many times did we get down there and not be able to push it into the end zone? We need to, that is the thing they need to sharpen, is getting it into the end zone, whether that's a 20-yard play or when we're on that 1st and goal. If LaFleur's offensive magical mind pulls something out of your ass, I know last week they tried that dumb play to Bach, right? And maybe that was the play. Maybe that was the play I'm looking for.
If it had worked.
If it would have worked, it would have been like, okay, they're actually doing something to mix it up down here. So I think it's that small victory. Get something going that you can build on and get a victory. So what do you think?
Stack success.
Exactly right. Exactly.
I think you make a really good point. Look for a little victory here and there. I think part of Rodgers' frustration why he's playing so poorly is that if you watch some of the game film, and I'm relying on a lot of the other podcasts and YouTube channels out there to expose this, but what we were definitely seeing with the Lions game is that our receivers could not get off the line. In fact, they talked about how they had never seen so many wide receivers on the ground, meaning that the defensive backs were aggressive, they were jamming them, and somehow our wide receivers were weak and laying on the ground. You saw Sammy Watkins running the wrong routes or taking the wrong adjustments throughout the whole game, as if he was completely lost out there. And maybe he was taking the role that they had practiced Dubs with all week. So Sammy coming in and taking that Dubs role, he didn't know what the fuck he was doing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so with that said, I think to get a victory, especially in the passing games, I think you got to scheme things up. I think what you're going to want to do is get clean releases off the line for the receivers. So do that by doing bunch formations and a lot of motion. Shout out to Higher Point of View. He's been talking all year about how the jet sweep, or at least the jet sweep motion, has led to a lot of the explosive plays that the Packers have had this year. Simply getting dudes, especially receivers, in motion, so when the ball is snapped, they have a clean release and they're at full speed coming off the line, right?
Yeah.
Our receivers are not good enough with their releases. Devontae Adams is arguably one of the best receivers ever to have an amazing release. No one could stop him off the line. And now we have none of that. So as a result, you see Rodgers taking the snap. He hits his 5-step drop. He's ready to rip it. No one's freaking open, or they're laying on the ground, right?
Yeah.
And that's just a generalization of the season, but we've seen it over and over and over again. So when you got these dudes out there saying, well, DeGuara was screaming down the middle, he was wide open, Rodgers looked at him and just didn't throw to him. Well, you know, Rodgers is squirrely now. He doesn't trust anything.
Yeah.
So imagine being in that mindset, not trusting everything. Everything's happening so fast. You know, I'm not surprised that he's missing some of those open looks, but he's got to get better too. He played one of the worst games I've ever seen him play last week.
Yeah. Yeah. I really think he will come out and, you know, I guess we've been saying that for so many weeks, right? But
yeah,
I got to think after this week, there's been so many memes and stuff just ripping on him hard. And I agree with you. You know, granted, the guy had a horrible game, maybe the worst game of his career. But at the same time, it's not him, not all him, I should say.
Yeah.
You know, he's the one that's highlighted because of some bad throws and things like that. But when you look at the game holistically, like you're stating, you know, it's difficult when you're running for your life or guys aren't open and, you know, you can't make magic out of nothing, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but he did miss some throws too. So
yeah, when he plays poorly and everyone else is playing like they have been, it's just a fucking disaster, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So to sharpen the knife, I think the Packers just need to do some things better. A lot of injuries. Let's get some of these young dudes in there to play, get their reps, get experience. This year's almost a wash, and you really got to start looking to next year. And by no means am I saying play fucking Jordan Love. No, not until the Packers are completely mathematically eliminated or Rodgers wants to sit down for the rest of the season because he's hurt. Rodgers will be here next year, so all the love, calling for love, they can shut up, in my opinion.
Yep.
All right, Isles. I think we've said enough, dude.
Yeah, we have. We went on. It was good.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. Be sure to subscribe, like, pass this along. We've been having a lot of fun doing this. Isles, I don't want to take up any more of your time. You've been very generous taking up your time on your vacation or business, whatever you're going out there. Hey, enjoy the rest of this weekend.
Yep, you as well.
All right,
it's been a pleasure. Go Pack.
Go Pack.
All right.